Hi, my name is Sandra White. As managers, we need to make sure that we have the proper leadership principles to lead our teams to success. I'm going to tell you a story about my husband and I going to Mexico on vacation. We're walking around our resort, having fun, enjoying the scenes, and everybody in Mexico at the resort is very friendly. They're constantly walking by saying, "Hey, how are you?" which maybe not always in English, or they'll say, "Hola." My reply back was always, "Hi, how are you?" My husband decided one time to say "Hola" back. The individual that said that to him then started sparking up a conversation with him in Spanish. And my husband had to say, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish, I only speak English." So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how do we adapt our principles into other cultures and other countries. So we're going to talk about leadership principles that are needed in Mexico. One of my colleagues has taken a leadership role in Mexico, and he needs some guidance on the principles that he should use to ensure he's a successful leader. To be successful in other cultures, you need cultural intelligence. And that's as simple as what it is. Cultural intelligence, what does that mean? The first thing is to make sure that you understand what's going on in that culture. Take time to educate yourself about how they like to do their day-to-day activities. What is their approach on tasks, and how do they interact with individuals? That's cultural intelligence. So we're going to go through some of those. To be successful in other cultures, you need cultural intelligence. You need to learn about the culture and how to adapt to it. The first thing we're going to talk about is cultural intelligence on DRIVE, cross-cultural issues. It's said that Mexicans are more vague than direct. In management, communication is key to leadership role, and even more so when considering cultural changes between leaders and subordinates. Being in a foreign country, understanding the position of the sender and the receiver is critical to overall success. Determining an appropriate channel of interaction will also increase the profitability of effective feedback. Daft states managers spend some 80% of each working day in communication with others. Your team will perform best when you set clear, defined targets, followed by regular progress checks. If you give clear direction and the required support, your employees will jump over the wall for you. This was a statement made by George Bauman. He is the GE of Mexico's managing director of the Electrical Distribution and Control Center. Accountability is another cross-cultural issue. In the US, accountability is assumed, which means that we give somebody a task here in the United States and we're assuming that they're going to hold themselves accountable. They're going to come back and do what we've asked them to do without really setting a lot of clear guidelines. And as George stated above with that statement, Mexicans need that guideline. They need to know, when does this need to be done, and they'll make sure to get it to you. So Mexico, it's less, it's assumed, but in Mexico, it's not unless a deadline is provided that they're willing to meet that expectation. Keeping an open dialogue allows the opportunity to share information while learning about your subordinates and finding common ground to enhance relationships as you pursue goals and productivity for your company. One of our biggest challenges today is diversity in the workplace. The cultural values and organizational system in many companies do not genuinely support the value of diversity. Daft talks about that in his book. As a new manager in a foreign country, realizing cultural acceptance of diversity issues would be critical to a successful management model. So again, communication is key. Although some Mexicans can speak English, it's a good idea to take a translator with you if you do not. Mark is fluent. My colleague is fluent in Mexican, Spanish, So he's all set there. He doesn't need a translator. So a great way to help with our communication in cross-cultural ways is to use the circular model of interpersonal communication shown here. It's talking about delivering a message, asking the receiver to interpret the message, and then they're going to give you a message back, and then you're going to interpret this. This is also a form of like active listening. What I thought I heard you say is this, or summarizing and questioning the statements again to make sure that everybody's on the same page and understanding what's being expected. Daft talks about this model in the Leadership Experience book on page 263, and he indicates the nature of effective communication is synchrical, in that the sender and the receiver may exchange messages several times to achieve a mutual understanding. So again, we can go around and around and around as many times as we have to, following these channels of here's the message, here's what I've heard, here's the message, here's what I've heard, to allow everybody to be on the same page and make sure that that explanation is working. When working with new culturals, we can ask to use this model to make sure that there is a clear understanding. Cultural intelligence on knowledge with cultural similarities and differences. So these are where we differ from the United States, and with my colleague going to Mexico, what are the things that need to be known about? So just like being on time for meetings, that's something that's very important. Like we in the United States have a cultural belief that punctuality is important. We feel like some of us anyway, if you're late to a meeting, that you're not valuing my time as much as your time. It's okay for me to wait for you. In Mexico, they expect you to be on time, but don't be surprised if they're about 30 minutes later. So they place an extra emphasis on personal life and making sure that everything is good there. The other thing, again, is with cultural differences and language barriers is mañana, right? So mañana means tomorrow. But in Mexico, yes, mañana means tomorrow, but tomorrow doesn't always mean tomorrow. It could mean a few days from now. This is one that my husband would argue with, because I'll always say, when are you going to do that? And he'll say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and I'll say, well, you didn't do that. When are you going to do that? And he's like, tomorrow never comes. So just a funny little tidbit there. Dates are written differently in Mexico than they're written in the United States. So with dates, the day of the month is listed first. So in the example here where it says 3/5/17, that's actually, my slide is wrong. I apologize, but it's actually March. It should be May 3rd of 2017, because our day is listed first. So it's the third day of the 5th month of the year of 2017. I apologize for that. Avoid using first names. So they're just like in the United States, we all work very hard for our titles and for our Mr., Mrs., Miss, the respect, showing of a respect. And so they feel the same way in Mexico. Use names like Senor or Senorita with their last name. So for me, you're going to say Senorita White instead of Mrs. White. And she did it in the library with a candlestick. And develop relationships. Be friendly. Ask them about their friends and their family. It's going to be the best way that you get to know a lot of people. The next cultural intelligence is strategy, awareness, and planning. So invoking cultural intelligence with strategy means we become aware of what our struggles will be and we plan to work around them. Daft states strategy formulation integrates knowledge of the environment, vision, and mission with the company's core competencies in such a way to attain synergy and create value for our customers. In Mexico, business is most of the time done person to person, not over the phone. Again, from where we saw on the previous slide, they like to build relationships. And so that's where the face-to-face is going to come in versus over the phone. they're going to start meetings with small talk. They, again, value their personal lives and their families. And so they want to have that, 10 to 15 minutes before a meeting to say, hey, Joe, how's it going? Haven't seen you. How's the wife? How's the kids? Hierarchy is important. They believe that, again, the titles that we've worked for are very important. And the Mexican team believes that you can't go from the low man on the totem pole directly to the VP of an organization, right? We have to take those steps to make that progress. One of the things too is don't refuse being offered a beverage from a Mexican in a Mexican relationship at the time of a meeting. They would take that as an insult that you're not willing to take on their offer. So cultural intelligence of action, we're adapting behavior. Arcent Financial Corporation says Mexican people do business with whom they like at a personal level. So developing solid relationships is key. Like we talked about previously, take the time to get to know them, build relationships, ask about their friends, their family, their culture, the things that intrigue them. What do they like to do in their free time? Don't stand with your hands on your hips. That portrays an aggressive behavior. And Mexicans generally, when they're meeting people for the first time with strangers, they'll shake their hands, and their handshakes last a little bit longer than what ours do in the United States. So don't let that catch you off guard. And friends will generally hug or kiss each other on the cheek when they see each other again. That's not really that uncommon from what we do here in the United States. So again, communication is very important, making sure that we've developed our cultural intelligence before we go to a different country to begin working, and know about what we're getting into. What does that culture prefer, and how can we be our best prepared? I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.